Oh, hello, and welcome to another great episode of Cup of Joel. Now with 100% more face. Yes, I've done it, ladies and gentlemen. I talked about my fear, and today I said, you know what, I'm going to overcome it, because I've been overcoming a lot of fears these days, so might as well. And, here it is. I hope everyone's having a good time of it. I certainly am. I have my struggles, but I am doing the best. I know the quality is probably going to be pretty shitty. I would imagine, I'm not very versatile with showing my face, and so there's probably going to be a bit of the issue here. But other than that, I think we're going to get we're going to get better at it with time. Anyway, but today, I actually want to be a little more positive than usual. Because today I actually want to talk about goal setting. Goal setting and manifesting. You ever heard about that? This like a new movement. It's existed forever, but it's come back again in the spiritual world of modern times. What is manifesting? It's essentially the idea that if you think that you're going to get something, you're going to get it. Interesting idea. You can see it in a spiritual way. It can be like, the energies that spread throughout the world will therefore manifest whatever the hell I'm sending in my neural thoughts. Or you could see it as, this is what I want to do, and I align myself through my actions to accomplish that goal by reminding myself what the goal is. I prefer that one. But anyway, so we're going to be talking about goal setting. Because, in a little context, modern world, very complicated world, right? Very difficult to move along. I mean, we can be lazy very easily. And most people who have any glimmer of success tend to have a plan. We learn about plan setting literally when we're children, right? With the agendas and teaching us to write it down and all that and making sure our parents would sign it or whatever. And then we grow up and they always give us a booklet. They're like, write your stuff down, plan your stuff up. And it's funny, when we become adults, we kind of forget about that little recommendation. I mean, it's a good recommendation, but yet we tend to forget about it. And, I think there's a reason. The first one being that to set a goal, you actually have to know what you want, right? You need to know what you're looking for, and then beyond that, you actually have to give yourself steps and ask yourself, well, what can I do to actually accomplish that goal? We actually talked about this kind of in the last episode, I believe, when we talked about the fact that number one, you don't know what you want. Most people don't know what they want. It was the episode right before. But anyway, we talked about how we don't actually know what we want necessarily. And so the problem is if we're very specific, we're probably going to hit a wall and realize that's not what we want. Versus if we do give ourselves more general goals, we can kind of explore more. And I think plan setting is a lot of that. It's a lot of us refusing to give ourselves specifics so we won't won't fail. And you know what? I got to tell you, I'm not walking back the idea of my previous episode at all, but I realized something. Goal setting is a bit of a tricky situation because one of the things that gets complicated is that you don't want to set things in stone. But also, I don't know about you guys, but when I accomplish things, I tend to not plan them in advance. I tend to think about them the day, and then I just do it. Right? When I do it, I finally accomplish it versus setting out to do the plan and then fail. In fact, I think that's the big thing about goal setting is that when you set goals, you know what's failure, right? Not accomplishing the goal, and you know what's success, accomplishing the goal, right? And then it already being a failure in a day already is heavy. So the idea of also failing your goals just makes it heavier because you know exactly why you failed. So I think there's a lot of reasons why one should not put a goal, and the positives, of course, is if you do act on them, you will probably prosper more if you work hard on making plans actually, useful and good, as they say. But I think the problem also, I feel like there's an underlying problem with goal settings. Don't worry, I am an advocate of it, but I think that we can do better than a lot of motivational speakers, right? A lot of people are just, set your goals and just focus on them and blah, blah, blah. But I think you can actually do it better. I think you can actually do more than just set goals. I mean, first of all, of course you can. You can always do everything better. Nothing's perfect, as we've talked about before. But beyond that, I feel like most people, the recommendation is do the best, plan you can, which, again, is a good recommendation because most people are pretty bad at making plans. I'm pretty bad at making plans. But I suppose, okay, here's the first thing. You should actually let yourself have some wild time. But you need to place it in a very specific time. See, in a day, there's a number of actions that you can do pretty well. You could say a lot of actions that you can accomplish. But I don't know if you remember when you got back home from school, for example, the level of motivation you have to accomplish additional goals is pretty minor. Or if just coming back from work, right? If you think about like goal setting from there, it gets very difficult. Now, when you wake up in the morning, you're fresh, right? And then goal setting is a little easier. So here's what I recommend. I am not a guru, okay? And I probably don't even do this to the extent. I'm more so trying to deconstruct the idea of goal settings and see if I can find a better solution to it. So the number one thing that I notice is tricky is to, again, figure out what you want. That's one. Number two, know how to set it up, but also know how to make it enticing. I think one of the things that's really tricky is that you don't... See, when you start doing something positive, you tend to want to keep doing things positive, right? So you're like, okay, I want to eat healthy, I want to work hard, and blah, 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 blah. Now, the thing that's getting kind of tricky here is that you're an egotistical human, right? And we all have flaws, and one of the flaws is that I'm not my own boss. What I mean is I don't want to be my own boss. I don't want to be like my mom and scream after myself and be like, do your homework, because you have enough people like that in your own life anyway. But in a sense, we don't have a choice, right? Yeah, that makes sense. My point being that we don't like pushing ourselves around because then it's like if I start giving myself goals, then I'll ask more, and then I can't do those goals because it's too much, but I'm going to sort of bully myself into doing them. I'll be like, do it or you're lazy, do it or you're pathetic, do it, and, you'll feel the pain of having all that. We talked about that. But, so you don't want to do that, right? Because you don't want that pain, and also you don't want that dynamic. And so the answer to that is to be fair, right? Is to be like, okay, look, I know you have problems, just do this, for example. And see, that's the recommendation most people go. They go, okay, well, look low enough to accomplish the goal. Here's the thing, though. When you do that, you're playing a weird dichotomy because you're feeding... It's okay. There's a little story. I'm sure you guys already heard about it, but it tends to explain addiction and all that. It's essentially the story of two wolves, right? There's like the bad wolf and the good wolf. And essentially, the one you feed is the one that gets stronger when they fight. And so then, like, which wolf overcomes, or if you want, it's the little demon next to you and the little angel next to you that are screaming in your ear. The one you feed is the one that gets powerful. Regardless, the issue is that when you set smaller goals and you put like devilish rewards, you tend to feed the wrong part of you, the part of you that wants to be like, nah, don't do it, And so, when I set myself smaller goals, I might accomplish them, but I also might push them off just because, or the goal was so small that it wouldn't matter. And then if I try to make it bigger, I would, it's like, if I fail on the small goals, then I don't have to do the bigger goals. So I would just convince myself to do smaller goals, and then I wouldn't accomplish, I would accomplish the goal half the time. And so I would be like, well, I can't even do that, so I'm not going to try to go higher, right? And so there's a dichotomy because I knew I could do better. And so do I set higher goals, right? Do I set, like the expression goes, if you shoot higher than the stars, you might hit a star, right? Or do I keep the level, right? So that's the dichotomy that exists. What's my opinion? My opinion is this is a very tricky subject. And the solution here is actually to try to figure... Okay, so the third solution that comes up when people are presented with this problem is they say, well, give yourself rewards that are positive still. So you essentially, it's like medium goals with positive incentives. So that would be like, if you do this, go out with friends, right? So that's like the teacher or the whatever, the self-help people, they tell you this to encourage you to get better at progression, right? Again, I'm not cynical per se. I just try to figure out ways that actually work. That like if there's no inspirational speech in the background, I will actually still do it. And so one of the things I realized is that third option is true and it can work to a certain extent. The extent going. See, the problem is like some of the goals you try to do, like, okay, what do you like, right? Well, a lot of things you like will be, in a sense, things that are lazy, right? Like, personally, I like video games, I like junk food and all that. And like, I do like playing sports, but it's like, playing sports is more like I can either set it up, so I always get play sports, or I don't. It's not a treat per se. It's like it's something I enjoy doing, but it's like I don't need to do it because I don't always do it anyway. I would prefer a more sinful reward, if you will. And one of the things that's get problematic is that the more it's sinful, the more it's like corrupted, the more in the sense you're gonna go back down into the depths of, well, step one, if you will, of your whole goal setting, and then you're like, fuck, I can't even goal set anymore. Anyway, so the dichotomy here is sort of like you have to find a way to force yourself to actually reward yourself with the positive goals, right? That would be like the fourth proposition. It's like, okay, well, have a friend. A lot of that is I actually tried this one. It's have a friend, give him like a challenge and give him a potential reward if he accomplishes that challenge. That is positive, and do the same for you, right? I actually did that for a little while. What happened? Well, human error, I would say. The big thing is like you don't want to rely your own success on other people as much as there is positives in that. The negative is, well, if that person changes their mind or they're busy, that's a big thing. If they're busy, that's really problematic, right? So I had a friend, I would go out play badminton with him, and no, actually I would go out, that was my reward, playing badminton and doing philosophy, and his reward was like biking. No, actually, mine was philosophy. He was sports. He really liked sports, and then we went to do sports for him, and me, we just like do philosophy. Here's the problem. After like the second time we did it, he was like, "Oh, I can't do it this week because I'm busy." And then we're like, "Okay, we'll do it the next week." And then I succeeded the next week, right? So then you're supposed to do twice the time. And then he was like, "Well, I don't have the time to do twice the time," so then we pushed it off. And then it's like, well, we don't have a reward anymore, right? And then we just let it go. So that can be a problem. And also, asking someone to help you out is very difficult. Most people. When I think about all these things, I usually put myself in the lowest position, right? Because you have to think yourself in a sense on step one to build up, and then once you're higher, then you find other things. But I find that most people are stuck on the first step or the second step, and then they fall back to the first step. And I mean, that's totally fine and human. Anyway, so yeah, the dichotomy here is that it's hard to ask someone, and also the other person actually has to have their shit together. And if you don't have your shit together, most likely the other person won't, because you tend to stand with people that will not like berate you for every sin you've done, even though you would like someone that pushes you more. But that's regardless of the point. Anyway. And so then you ask the therapist or self-guru or whatever, what do I do then? And you see, here already you can see the kind of the problem where it's like, there's always an excuse, but at the same time, we're trying to be fair. We're like, okay, is there a justification here? So I think to an extent, plan setting is something that, here's the thing that I used to do. I used to go, when I make a plan, I think one of the first things I put in my plan is set up the next plan. Right? It's not the first thing I do, but it's the first thing I put in my plan. And that was probably the best way I would succeed. The other thing I would do is I would put very easy things, like a list of very easy things, and some harder ones. And I would do a percentage base. So I'd be like, okay, if you get like 90% on this week, you'll get this reward. It kind of worked. Because the dichotomy, the solution I did, essentially, was to find a way to, well, have that sort of dopamine reward immediately. That is, in a sense, not sinful, but simply satisfying, right? So it's like just a checking of something. So be like, okay, well, this is done, this is done. I mean, after like 5 checks for like something that took you like 5 minutes, kind of feels satisfying. Like, so I would have like do my bed, brush my teeth, that stuff, like the easy stuff, and then it's like work out, which is just like seems equal, right, in all the lines. So that used to work pretty well. I would say so. My point in that solution is when you make a plan, it's you can try to trick yourself a bit by making it look as if it's not that bad. I mean, look, we most of the time we actually hype ourselves. We're like the opposite of a hype man. Like when we think about homework, we like make it huge, right? We make it like it'll take like 5 hours. Or if we're about to be like it's like very close by and we have to do it, we're like, no, relax, it's like 30 minutes, it's nothing. But then we won't do it, and so at the end it gets huge. Regardless, my point is that we tend to make things bigger than they are if we don't want to do them, or smaller than they are if we're trying to justify why we're not doing them. It's like two things. We tell ourselves it's short, but we play it in our heads as if it's huge. And so one of the things you can do is make it visual, right? So then your plan is visual, and you kind of have that illusion that all the things are equal. Right? So if the little it's sort of like, okay, well, little satisfaction of brushing my teeth, little satisfaction of doing my room, little satisfaction of this and this and this. It's like, well, might as well get my last little satisfaction of working out or doing this or doing that. So that's one part. It's not necessarily like a perfect solution because I've had issues with that as well. Again, I'm not a guru. I'm just trying to deconstruct plan setting to try it, because I feel like most people don't do this, right? Most people like they just like make a plan, and then if they're giving you like specifics, it's like, again, it's like inspiring music in the background. It's like they're tricking you into believing it's a better idea than it is, with the music and the way they talk and the inspiring force of like vitality and But honestly, it's not that great. So that's the one. And the second thing I would say for plan setting is that there should actually be a little bit of sinful reward, but there also should be other rewards. So one of the things I would do is I would try to become my own hype man. So for example, if I accomplish something, regardless of what it was, I would give myself a high five. I know it's kind of pathetic to an extent, but a high five is pretty cool. I don't know if you enjoy high fives. I certainly do. So I would be like, good job, Joe. And I high five myself. Feel pretty nice. So I would do that, and then other things would be like, look at you, freaking 50% done. That's it. You don't like hype yourself up being like a badass. And sometimes I'd make myself look higher for the accomplishments I've done. What's the problem with that? Well, again, it's like there's a limit to how much you can hype yourself. I mean, it's like you did your bed, good job. But if it becomes normal, so okay, this is the point. Yeah, the thing that started happening is that with time, once it becomes sort of easy for you to do something, it's like you don't hype yourself as much because it's like, well, now it's the regular, right? So at the time where I really like motivated myself when I did my bed, it's because I never did my bed. Now I always do it without thinking, right? And so now it's like, it's a bit weird to high five yourself for something like you didn't even think about it. You just did it. You just woke up and did it. So that usually happens. And then I would say that's another problem with plan making is that when you set the little goals and they become, automatized, you kind of want to remove them from the plan, because at that point it's like, well, it's a given, I'm going to do it. And then you're just left with a medium. And then again, well, the illusion disappears, right? So that's my point. This is the issue with plan making, I think, in the long term. It's because it starts off well, again, encouraging music, all that. You're like, okay, I'll do a plan, and you work hard, and you set little goals or whatever. And then, or even you get a friend. Now, a friend might fail. You might lose the sort of momentum of the music. And then I feel like what usually happens, like I said, is the little stuff are done. You got the little stuff good. You start feeling like your life is getting together. And now the medium stuff, which was hard, and the hard stuff, they're still there, right? Because it's like you're eating the good stuff on your plate before eating the disgusting stuff. And now it's like the plan is not as fun anymore. The plan is not as motivating anymore. And so you slowly tend to get lazier, so you can fall back into that comfort, fall back into that feeling of actually having a control, right? It's sort of like it's almost like a movie, right? You kind of feel like you're hitting the end of the positive montage in your movie, and that's the problem. Is that you, in a sense, we need to think longer term with the idea that we most likely will have problems because the same motivational methods we're using in the beginning will not work later on. And so, how do we make a plan that actually works long term? And one of them would be that, well, technically, in a sense, you would have to continuously change, right? I find that plans usually work when there's enough chaos in your life where little things are, in a sense, let's say you're a guy always on the move, right? You're always starting a new business, doing this and this and this. Then little plans can be useful just to like satisfy you. And in fact, you'll keep them along because the most of the big stuff you kind of just you're forced to do through the chaos of your life. And then the small things will kind of be like just rewards, basically. So I feel like the businessman with the plan usually, gets all the stuff done because it's sort of like he's forced to. But what about us regulars, us people that are stable-minded individuals? What do we do with us? Well, I think, again, it's sort of like a plan, to an extent, is simply a goal achiever. And when something is a given, you should start, you should set yourself, I think, a time to reevaluate and re-add new things in your plan. The thing that gets complicated is to know when, so you need to actually have time to self-reflect. And this is you could say the fifth problem to all this dichotomy of plan setting, is that to make a good plan, you need to set up time to actually perfect your plan. And to do that, you actually have to set up time to analyze your plan. And to do that, you need to set up, times to set up, times to... Anyway, I'm not saying you have no time. My point is, when you start doing a plan, you tend to lose motivation pretty quickly because you only, like you said, you hype yourself up to do it, but you don't actually do like maximum effort. You do like as much effort that the momentum will allow you. And so one of the things is that if you do set up time to set up a plan, you're probably going to lose your momentum before you have it. Or you'll be like, no, I'm fine. I already have a decent plan. So, and then if I was a hype man, I would say, well, you have to take it seriously. Take seriously plan setting so you won't fuck up. But again, without my motivational music in the background, it's not going to give you that, that pull that you had in the beginning. So again, what is the solution? Is there a solution? I would say, again, that if you're going to plan stuff, right? If you're going to do like plan setting, you should do it based on percentages. I think it should be as easy as possible to upgrade your plan. And to do so, I would say, look at your success rate. Look why you're succeeding, right? Don't downplay the fact that you've done small things, but I'm saying look at, let's say, okay, in the beginning I said, set a lot of small things and it boosts you up, right? But then with time, you want to try to, I would say, even though you do the small things, I would say try to do one challenging thing every day. It's hard, and my recommendation is kind of counterproductive because, like I said, it's hard to do something that is hard fundamentally, and this is one of the reasons we lose track. But in the beginning, try to do something hard every day, right? Something that's very challenging. And the reason you want to do that is that in the long term, as you do things that are hard, it's a motivational speech thing, but it's essentially when you do what is hard, then the things that are easy become automatic, and the things that are normal become easy, right? So that is sort of like the dream of a good plan. A good plan, if done right, you do the hard shit, you plan it in a way where the small stuff is actually comfortable, and then you can overcome, right, all that problematic stuff with the momentum, right? That's the big thing. That's why the music is there, by the way, and motivational things is to start you, push the ball, and then you get into a momentum. So the dream is you go for the hard stuff, you get used to the small stuff, it becomes automatic, then you can move on continuously, putting new things and then focus and giving yourself a high five for the small things that used to be normal, now they're easy, and continuously become the perfect man. That's the ideal. Of course, you can see a problem in the fact that, like, what after like a year, you're president. Like, is that the goal? But no, that's a part of it. I would say another part of it would be, so that's the ideal, and you should actually try to do an extent of that. That could help you for the short to actually medium term. The long term, not yet, but the short to medium term, yeah, there you go. That's how you do it. You do all the stuff I talked about in the beginning. So set them small goals, have a little hype man, give yourself like, go me, all that. Then also try to do one big goal, or like try to overcome things that are genuinely hard, and especially do it in the first few days because you're gonna lose momentum very quickly. So try to do it like in the first few days to really like, come on, I can do this. And once that's done, try to not be discouraged. If you fail at something, be like, no, keep going. You got to keep going for the few days. Okay, just keep that momentum. And then also don't forget, it is a story to an extent. So this is why you lose momentum. It's because reality hits. It's sort of like, I'm gonna be the best football player ever. But then you have homework and doing laundry and blah 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 blah, and then it's like, oh right, reality, lose the story. So that's what I mean. It's like, if you're gonna use the hype method, do it quick. Get the big stuff done. If you're not gonna use the hype method, then just be realistic about it. I guess force yourself to do something hard anyway. If you're like, I don't feel it, it's like, well, I find that without motivation, right? If you have no hype, but you still want to do a plan and you still want to have goal settings, I recommend. Make the small goals be super small, right? Like, leave your room, right? So, I'm not saying to put necessarily a list on these, because this might be a bit long, but what I mean is, like, if you have a big goal, really, like, break it down, like you could not believe. Like, get your shoes, get up, put your, like, if you're gonna go for a run, get your clothes, get your music, stuff like that, do that, go outside, not go run, it's like, go outside, right? Put your timer on. And you, like I said, you do all those small things, so your brain's like, okay, I can do this. And then the run, again, it's a little illusion here. You're like, okay, I start running. And then the goal is just to tell yourself to not quit until the time is done. And then bam, you went running. The same thing for a lot of things. Homework is a bit hard because it's like, well, you actually got to get into it. But the goal here would be, if you want to succeed, most people say after 10 minutes you start getting into the momentum. So I would recommend, if you have homework, it would be break it down, sit down, open this, look at it, just look at the homework, open your timer, do a minute. I'm not saying stop, do a minute. Just set your goal to do 1 minute, and then do a second minute, and then do a third. Right to 10, and then when 10 is done, try to keep going. Right, so the next objective would be like try to get to 20. Right, so it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, and then most likely take a break at that point. But then it gets hard, so try to take a break, but then keep going after. I should probably hurry up because this is almost 30 minutes, so I want to do this plan thing quick. Anyway, so motivational or not, there is ways to do it. Medium term and short term, but my problem, and I think a lot of people's problem, is the long term. So how do you get the long term? Well, it's really hard to say because to beat the long term, you actually have to know what the problem with the long term is. And what it is that events in your life will actually break like the structure of your plan, right? Like some days you will not be able to overcome a thing, even though you're motivated to do it and you did everything you had to do right. For example, an accident in your family. A job interview, or this and that, a party. A party is a big one, by the way. If you're like, oh, I don't eat junk food, whatever, it's like, well, you'll do an exception for a party, and then that'll break your plan. And once that's broken, it gets very difficult to keep it, nice and stable. So what do you do for that? I think one of the things that you have to do is you have to, first of all, accept reality, right? That ideals, do the best you can, right? That's always what a human needs to do, is to do the best they can. If they fail, well, I mean, that happens. I think the thing that gets complicated is that as a plan dies, right, you don't like to admit it to yourself. Well, I know I don't. I know that when I start failing, I don't like to take the time to say, hey, you stop doing this and this. Because, well, the whole point is that, it's easier to not look, right? And I also get rewarded in a sense for not looking, because it's like, oh, I get less pain, less effort, and I'm at that good position, right? It's sort of like the hero's fall, is that when you're the hero, doing corrupted things feels like just a bonus, right? Just like, oh, bonus this, bonus that, bonus this. And then it's like, well, why wouldn't I not do that, right? And so, what do? Well, one of the things you could do is, like I said, if you try to put a percentage because if that is what's going to happen, one of the things that's going to come up is your reward system, right? And if one thing stays, and it's how you give yourself rewards, if that stays, then one of the things that could be interesting is that you probably won't abandon reward, right? And so you can look at it and be like, have I earned this reward? Now, be careful of this. I know my mistake was that when I was like threatening the reward, I just stopped giving myself the reward, and then I just stopped everything. Because then laziness is probably better than the reward. So be careful. But one of the things you can do is sort of like tell yourself what's happening, right? Based on your reward. Do you deserve the reward? What did you do to earn the reward compared to before? And how do you feel right now? And if you are getting lazier, ask yourself, again, there's a trap here, but ask yourself, like, are you going to get back on the horse, or do you want this to die off first and then rebuild it? And I know that sounds weird, because in a sense you would say, well, no one wants it to die, but it's like most of the time you're going to do it anyway, right? If subconsciously you're like, ugh, I'm done with this, you should probably admit it to yourself, because it's probably going to die, but you're going to pretend you don't see it. And then when that happens, when you're kind of flipped. So I would recommend that you be honest, and if you know that you're probably going to abandon this at some point, this is hard to say, but essentially try to find a way to be like, what is wrong with the plan, right? And then try to observe yourself to understand what exactly you're trying to say, because most of the time when you ask yourself what's wrong with the plan, it's probably laziness that's going to talk, or your sinfulness or whatnot. Talking like a preacher. Anyway, but yes. So ask yourself what exactly is wrong with the plan, and based on that, you can observe and be like, okay, why did I start this in the first place? Right? Am I out of the problems that was the reason I started a plan in the first place? If the answer is yes, good. But then ask yourself, will I refall if I let go of the plan? And you can be honest about this. If you don't think you're going to fall, great. And then the next thing would be like, what is the next motivation to make a plan again? Because if you realize you're going to kill your plan, you should be like, well, maybe that's because the goal has been achieved. Right? That's usually another big like trap you get in the long term, is that you might actually achieve your goal, and then the plan becomes a bit redundant, right? Because then it's just maintenance. No one likes to work out for maintenance. You like to have a goal. So one of the things would be like, well, what's the next goal? And be careful. Again, you want to make it still realizable. You're improved to an extent, but you're still you, and that's not an insult. That's just a reality. You can still be lazy and stuff, and also, if you ever succeed at something and it's not on the plan, you should still reward yourself regardless. But anyway, yeah. So if you're not gonna die it off, like if you're not trying to kill the plan off, then ask yourself simply what's wrong with the plan and how do I regain that motivation. And that question seems a bit shallow, but essentially here again would be like, is my goal dead, or am I just running in circles, stuff like that. That should be, you should actually maybe put it on a plan or not, but the self-awareness, if done with the analyzing of reward, you can actually, because you also want to feel good when you earn a reward, right? You want to feel like that reward was justified. And so, if that reward is justified, you should probably ask yourself again, well, what do I have to do to make it feel justified? What exactly is my goal? And, basically like rekindle the process. Almost like the plan it's like a relationship, right? You gotta rekindle that relationship once in a while to make sure it's nice and popping. You need to go on a date with yourself and rekindle that plan. Anyway, so that's if all of that's basically me analyzing plan settings. I hope that makes sense. Look, I'm not a perfect man, and I try my best to do plans. And the thing about goal setting is that it's really useful. It's really useful, but it's really hard, right? Again, because it's very painful, but that's why most people, I think, do the manifesting, because it's simple plan, right? It's like, I'm not going to do all the plan stuff. I'm just going to set 3 goals, and I'm going to let myself do it. And by the way, that is also a thing you can do. I could say, do both. If not in a spiritual sense, I don't encourage the believing that the universe will bend to your will because you believe in something. But I would recommend that you probably do give yourself at least, I would say the goals you have, right? The big ones, like you have hard things in a day, but I mean the big goal that you're setting off, they should be minimum. There should be 1, 2, or 3 max. Don't give yourself 20 goals. Because I find that there is a lot of things that are important in your life, but like the biggest goal, the ultimate goal should be like be the best person you can be. But then when you break it out, it could be like, well, job right now, maybe family right now, maybe mental health. Okay, and then from under that, maybe mental health, it could be like sports, right? Like fitness, and then all that stuff. But be careful, because I'm a guy who falls in a lot of traps, and I keep falling into them. So, one of the things I like about this podcast is I can call myself out. So, it's a conversation with you guys, of course, but it's also a conversation with me. And this is one of the reasons I just keep doing it, because I really enjoy what I have to say to myself. So, there's a lot of traps here. And, you have to be fair, because what happens usually is that we live in this ideal, right? And then we fail, and then we don't want to talk about the fact that we fail. And so we never get back up, right? It's like that one time you were working out really hard for a month, and you were really at it, and then the next month you did nothing, right? And you didn't talk about it, and then you never got back on it. Or you had a dream to start an instrument, right? And you started, and you're really motivated, and whatever. At some point you let it go. Well, it's because we forget humanity, right? We fall for the idea. We fall in love with the idea of how great we could be, right? But then it's like we're not at the same place as the effort that we need to do to get the reward immediately. So we have to be like, we have to hype ourselves up for the small stuff, but bring our objectives, like the biggest objective is to be fine, and you can leave them there, but don't look at them. Like be the best person you can be. Fine, look at it if you want. But the goals, the under goals, you can look at them, but don't look at it's because you don't want the big thing to be the thing you're obsessing over, because you're not going to get it in a very long time, right? The whole point is sort of like you're going to get that reward later, right? It's a sacrifice of now for later. And the thing is, it's like if you obsess over it in the long term, you lose that motivation. You're like, well, I'm never going to get it, right? It's too hard, especially if you fail. If you fail at one thing or 2 things, then it's like, oh, I give up, right? So it's the humanity. You have to find your humanity, your weakness, your all that, and embrace it in your plan building, right? And that's what I tried to show in this podcast today was the fact that there's a lot of things, small things you can do to help the sort of human part of you actually push yourself. And an ideal is good, but you should remember that it is an ideal, right? And the hype music and all that, that's all good, but it can also kill him. It can kill his motivation. The farmer gets up in the morning every day and does the job he has to do, right? He doesn't look at an ideal. He looks at just, I need to feed my family. And he's motivated by that, and he focuses. He's not the perfect man, and he's not the one who's going to overcome everything, but he succeeds. The working man, if his job is only to make money, is able to do the work, usually, right? But the guy who's like the hype beast and crazy tends to not be able to hit his mark because he forgets his humanity, the higher goal he sets. And so, there you go. That was my little talk, my TED Talk. But my name's not Ted, and this is not TED Talk, and I'm not funny. That joke was fine. Anyway, that was that was Cup of Joel. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope my face was a great addition. I'm probably going to have a lot of issues with this. That's fine. I'm okay with it. This was my goal, the hard goal for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you in the next one, and hopefully my face will still be there in the next one. All right. See you guys. Woo! Did it.